In solo leveling after defeating boss Baruka, Jin Woo, his student, and the guild members make their way back through the gate marked with tears of relief. However, S-rank hunter Baek Yoonho was surprised to see only low-rank hunters asking for Kim Chul when Hee-jin confirms they are the only ones. As Jin Woo offers his student a ride, Baek Yoonho confronts Jin Woo, grabbing his shoulder and questioning him about the lost guild members, which Jin Woo responds by saying he saved the remaining 3 people and should be thanked. After a tense standoff, Baek Yoonho apologizes to Jin Woo as he gets in his car to leave. As Jin Woo drives his student home, he reflects on his failure to summon Baruka's shadow, and he pulls out a new item called Baruka's Dagger, a Class A dagger that makes the user more agile. Jin drops off his student, and she tells him she'll see him later as Jin Woo realizes it's past midnight, and starting today, he's back to raiding with Jin Ho. As Jin Woo and Yoo Jin Ho embark on the journey of establishing their guild, the process becomes really easy, with Jin Woo's shadow army clearing the dungeons. As they defeat all the enemies, Igris takes down the boss, and the lower rank summons collect all the materials worth money in the dungeon. This actually makes Jin Ho ask if he can pick up some magic crystals, since he feels out of place with the shadows doing everything. After their final raid together, they both go out for drinks and barbecue together. However, Jin Woo thinks about how he only started this relationship so he could level up, and since he's met his goal, is there any point in keeping this relationship? It's here when Jin Woo asks Jin Ho what he really thinks of him, and Yoo Jin Ho tells him he's only known him for a short time, but he's more of a brother to him than his actual brother. This makes Jin Woo smile as he says he'll consider him as his younger brother from now on. And like that, they are officially guild leaders as Jin Ho goes to his father and makes everything official. In solo leveling after entering the gate to hell, Jin Woo continues fighting demons and taking souls. However, after clearing all of the demons in his area, it's time for Jin to move on to the next floor. This is when Jin pulls out an entry permit to the second floor that tells him it needs to be used in the floor movement magic circle, which is kind of far away, so Jin calls for any monster-type soldier in his army, summoning the leader of the Ice Bears. Towering before him, the Ice Bear's huge size strikes Jin Woo, comparing him to a heavy-duty vehicle. Jin hops on his back when suddenly 3 demons appear, and before Jin can finish thinking about how annoying they are, the Ice Bear charges forward effortlessly, sending all the demons in his path flying. And this is the moment Jin Woo gives him the name Tank. In solo leveling, as Jin Woo ascends the tower floors at a scary pace, he encounters his first boss-grade demon on the 50th floor, Avaricious Vulcan. Jin Woo says, "Let's begin!" and his shadow mages unleash a barrage of fireballs at Vulcan's guards as they begin to charge towards them. In this moment, Jin tells his army to take care of the rest as he activates his stealth skills so he can watch. Iron and Igris make easy work of the guards as Jin says it doesn't matter if the guards are high rank because he's constantly strengthening his soldiers. However, Jin looks toward Vulcan, who hasn't moved from his spot, saying he'll just go finish it. But before he could finish what he was saying, Vulcan vanishes, catching Jin off guard and smashes Jin's army, easily crushing Iron and taking Igris out of the fight. In this moment, Jin Woo leaps out of his stealth and punches Vulcan so hard he sends him crashing through the city. However, Vulcan becomes enraged, activating his skill Wrath, boosting his stats and removing his sense of pain. In this moment, with lightning speed, the demon charges towards Jin, leaving him with no time to evade, and in a moment of desperation, Jin calls to Iron, who throws his shield just in time for Jin to block Vulcan's onslaught as the battle continues. In solo leveling, after barely blocking Vulcan's attack, the demon unleashes an onslaught, testing Jin Woo's limits. Jin knows he can endure this assault only because of his strength, but he needs to find an opening for a counterattack. With quick thinking, Jin identifies a vulnerable moment and strikes. However, Vulcan anticipates this and dodges, countering with a strike of his own while Jin is in midair and unable to dodge. In this split second, Jin realizes he can use his Dominator's touch ability to propel himself backward, narrowly avoiding Vulcan's attack. This is when Jin Woo realizes he won't be able to beat the demon boss like this and needs to create an unavoidable situation as he looks toward a broken building. Jin dashes through the city, luring Vulcan into pursuit. But with Vulcan closing in, Jin activates his sprint ability, racing up the broken building's facade. Reaching the peak, Jin knows it will be hard for the demon to stop so suddenly at his current speed. With Vulcan right where he wants him, Jin blasts off the building building, delivering a devastating blow, defeating Vulcan. As Sung Jin-woo finishes up his raids with Jinho, out in America in the eastern United States, an entire crew is taken out, leaving only one awake and in complete shock as he says they were all taken down by a human-shaped monster with mana stronger than the entire A-rank dungeon. This man-shaped monster tries to speak to the man, but he can't understand a single word and continues to panic as the monster says he is Korean and wants to go home. Later, we see that he was taken to the United States Bureau of Hunters in Washington, where the deputy director questions the man's identity, and this is when we learn he was a South Korean hunter who got stuck in a dungeon after the gate closed 10 years ago. Still suspicious that he may be a monster with human memories, they want an S-rank hunter present for future interrogations. So they call the only S-rank hunter in Washington who's fluent in Korean, Hwang Dong-soo. It's here we learn the trapped hunter's name, Sung Il-hwam. We've talked about a mysterious figure who emerged from a dungeon in America after being stuck for 10 years. And as Jin is going through some boss-grade loot drops, Sung Il-hwan is stuck in an interview room with none other than Hwang Dong-soo, as they try to figure out if he's a magic beast or not based on their interview. Right away, Hwang finds it funny how out of all of the languages this man or beast knows Korean, as he tells Sung Il-hwam that it'd be beneficial to him to cooperate as Hwang is the one that decides if he is a monster or not. Over the course of the conversation, while questioning Sung Il-hwam's family ties, Hwang realizes that this is Sung Jin-woo's father. And in this moment, Hwang lets out a large grin as his bloodlust fills the room. Jin's father tells him to calm down, or he'll have to use force. And at this point, nothing could possibly stop them from battling, which they do. And Jin-woo's father shows the S-rank there's still levels to this game that he hasn't reached yet. After entering the Hunter Association for a rank reassessment, Jin sits in the waiting area as we learn that a hunter's strength is determined by their rank, and no matter how much they train, it's not easy to compensate for the gap set by their ranks. As we look back at Mr. Song, who honed his swordsmanship and was no match for Kang Tae-shik due to their ranks. In this moment, a man comes out of the evaluation room after receiving an E rank, and the examiner calls for the next. However, the obviously nervous man next to Jin asks if he will go first. Sung Jin-woo states his name, then places his hand on the black crystal when in this moment the examiner seems confused, saying she got an error. This is when the assistant manager walks in, and after looking at the machine is astonished, as he explains that this isn't an error, it's an immeasurable, meaning that their detector isn't capable of measuring Jin-woo's magical power. In other words, Jin-woo is South Korea's 10th S-rank hunter. After Jin-woo is discovered to be an S-rank hunter, he joins the mining team of the Hunters Guild, so he can experience a high-rank dungeon for himself. We learn that since high-rank dungeons are so large, the attack force is unable to handle all of the work, so they divide it accordingly. The attack force takes care of all of the monsters except for the boss. Then the collecting team enters to pick up all of the corpses, and the mining team will enter last to mine the ores. As Jin-woo and his fellow miners get to work, they are astounded by the rate of Jin-woo's work, questioning if he's really an E rank. During lunch break, Jin-woo remains behind, claiming he's already eaten. Left alone, Jin seizes the opportunity to take a peek at the boss. Excited, Jin-woo draws his dagger, when suddenly a voice calls out questioning his actions. In this moment, Jin exhales in relief after almost taking out the boss, and explains he simply got lost. Hunter Cha, still suspicious, urges Jin to leave, however, as Jin-woo walks past her. Cha Hye-in is surprised that he doesn't have a stench and questions if Jin's really a hunter as she checks his license. Later, while Jin-woo is exiting the dungeon with the other miners, we learn that Hunter Cha is able to smell a certain foul scent from hunters, which is why she carries around a handkerchief. Jin-woo is given his pay and invited to join another raid with the B team, to which he agrees as this arc continues. In solo leveling, Jin-woo arrives to his second raid as a miner and says the atmosphere reminds him of old times. This is when the leader of the attack force, Sun Ki-hoon, asks if anyone wants to come with them as their porter since theirs didn't show up today. However, no one wanted to risk their lives for an extra bit of cash since a small scratch would be enough to kill them. In this moment, Jin-woo raises his hand saying he will go, as everyone is surprised thinking he could die. The two exchange names and prepare when Jin notices this gate is bigger than yesterday case, as Ki-hoon says not to worry because it is weaker, which is why the B team is handling it. As Jin and the B team head in, he says how the association's measurement doesn't seem to be wrong, but wonders why he has the same ominous feeling as the Red Gate. As they venture through the dungeon jackals attack, and Jin Woo is shocked as the attack force prepares for battle without any instruction. They easily dispatch the jackals, however, are left wondering why C-rank monsters are still lurking around an A-rank dungeon, since weaker monsters are usually hunted down by stronger ones. This is when Jin notices trace of a leash and says someone's been raising these things. In this moment, from out of the shadows comes Sun Ki-hoon is horrified at the sight of a high orc when 9 more emerge from the shadows, leaving the attack force shaken. The orcs launch their assault as one leaps right over the fighters targeting the mages. However, their spells have little to no effect, so this mage summons a fiery creature to fight for him at the cost of his men. Meanwhile, the tankers are easily cut through and the fighters are overwhelmed since the tankers' taunts aren't working. This is when we learn that high orcs are one of the strongest species of orcs, and each one is capable of matching A-rank hunters in combat. And with 22 high orcs and only 17 hunters, it's not looking good for the hunters. This guy gets his arm chopped off as he tells everyone to stay alive, and in this moment, a mage steps in, summoning a snake-like creature to fight the orc. This healer works on replacing the guy's arm, however, as she finishes, she turns around to see the same orc preparing to attack when suddenly it's lifted from the ground and torn apart before the healer's eyes as she watches in terror. After Jin uses stealth to save the female healer, the fight becomes a lot easier for the attack force as Jin goes around weakening all of the high orcs using his stealth skill. Jin realizes he can level up just by supporting the party and says he could have leveled up more if he killed them all, but the Hunters Guild paid huge amounts of money for the permit, so he shouldn't interfere too much. The fight ends with the attack squad questioning how they won as the female healer tells Ki-hoon what happened, and they try to figure out who secretly used magic. But before they can figure out who it is, the other hunters ask Ki-hoon if they can retreat for now since there's bound to be more powerful monsters ahead. The squad leader decides to retreat. However, as the attack squad gets to the gate, they run into a barrier spell of high level, and as they try to break it, curse magic targets the mages, disabling them. In this moment, Ki-hoon turns around and the attack force is seemingly surrounded. An orc approaches Ki-hoon, and after taking a moment to stare at him, it yells a mantra before its head twists around, and it starts speaking human language as it introduces itself as Kargalgan and says it wishes to meet with them. This is when one of the mages explains that it's a puppet that someone else is speaking through, and after asking it a few questions, the orc gives Ki-hoon the choice to die by his men or follow his men, to which the squad leader agrees to follow. As they follow the orcs, Ki-hoon tells Jinwoo that they're going to surprise attack the boss when they get there, and he should take the opportunity to run and call the main attack force. Jin asks if he plans on dying with the boss, and Ki-hoon responds that their job is to close the gate rather than making it out alive, and that's why people pay them lots of money. B-team attack force arrives in the boss's room and is gripped by fear as they stand before Kargalgan, his 4 guards, and hundreds more high orcs. The attack force prepares to attack the boss when he asks if they fear him, unleashing his magical energy, which shakes up the attack force, leaving them questioning how and why they are going to fight someone with such overwhelming power. Ki-hoon asks why he brought them there since his warriors could have easily killed them all, and Kargalgan responds that while they wait for the dungeon to break, they'll use the hunters for entertainment. In this moment, Ki-hoon yells for everyone to charge. However, he is the only one, as everyone else is paralyzed by fear. As Ki-hoon leaps to attack the orc, Kargalgan effortlessly creates a shield to block the hunter's attack, calling him foolish as he activates his gravitation magic, slamming Ki-hoon back and forth between the floor and the roof. The attack force panics, however, in this moment. Jin-woo grabs Ki-hoon, laying him on the floor, and says that he can't just interfere with the guild's property, but the attack force is going to die. So he asks if he can kill all of the monsters in the room. In this moment, one of the guards appears behind Jin, preparing to strike, but Jin uses his Dominator's touch ability to ragdoll the orc before pinning him into the roof. Jin then asks one more time if he can kill them all, to which Ki-hoon pleads for help. Kargalgan calls Jin-woo impressive, and Jin says that he's never felt such power before, but this is a terrible matchup for the High Orc as he summons his Shadow Army, and the Hunters Association inspectors arrive outside the A-rank gate that Jin and the B-team attack force entered. looking for Jin Woo. After asking the miners, the inspectors are told he's in the dungeon working as the B-team's porter since theirs didn't show up today. As the inspectors begin walking toward the dungeon, a wave of magical energy hits Woo Jin-chul. As he says for a moment, he thought he was going to rip into pieces. He scans the gate's power and is alarmed, stating that it's one of the most dangerous among the A-rank gates, and that the previous measurement was wrong. Meanwhile, Kargalgan mocks Jin for having so few soldiers, as Jin warns him not to underestimate them, activating his new skill, Domain of the Monarch, which increases the stats of all shadow soldiers fighting above his shadow by 50%. The High Orcs charge, and Iron uses Taunt, but it fails since the enemy's stats are too high, angering him as he takes out a bunch of them with one swing. Meanwhile, Igris gets surrounded but easily cuts the Orcs to pieces. Jin Woo effortlessly cuts through the High Orcs, mentioning that all his shadow soldiers under Night Grade have already been destroyed a couple times, so he has to lower their numbers as much as possible. Kargalgan retaliates by activating Hymn of the Fire Dragon, blasting Jin's shadow soldiers. The boss taunts Jin for having such weak soldiers, as he says his mana will run out before he can finish his warriors, but Jin confidently says he has a few powerful soldiers and won't run out of mana. In this moment, Kargalgan activates Hymn of Blazing Fire, blasting Jin's army once more. Jin Woo pulls a potion from his inventory and says he can keep replenishing his mana, but doesn't want to fill his stomach with potions, so he'll finish this quickly. This is when Jin says, "Arise," and summons the High Orc shadows, as he says there are still a lot of orcs left, but will all soon turn into his shadows, as he points at Kargalgan and says, "When he's done, you will too." The boss questions if Jin is the Shadow Monarch, but before he can finish what he's saying, he glitches and sends his guards to join the fight as a battle between the generals begins. Iron clashes with one of the orcs, stunning him with a powerful headbutt before flattening him with his hammer. Meanwhile, Igris takes on two guards at the same time as he effortlessly dodges their attack, taking out his dagger and stomping it into the head of one while blocking the other's attack. As Igris gets his footing, he sends the orc flying into the air when Iron appears behind him, hitting the guard over to Tank, who smashes the High Orc into the ground. Iron and Tank wave at each other, and Jin says it looks like his generals are superior, and in this moment the attack force tries to join the fight. However, Kargalgan puts a bunch of restraints on them, as he says the audience shouldn't intrude onto the stage. He tries to cast hymns over Jin Woo too, but Jin brushes them off, as he says he's going to break that annoying shield of his, and gives his shadow mage the Orb of Avarice, who casts a fireball that easily breaks the shield, shocking the High Orc. In this moment, Hunter Cha arrives on the scene and is taken back by what she's witnessing as Kargalgan goes all out and transforms himself into a giant stomping Jin's army as his mana runs out. Charging a fireball, Kargalgan questions if he still looks inferior to Jin, who dodges, saying, "Yup," stabbing the giant orc spellcaster in the eye, and the Hunters Association inspectors arrive just in time to witness Jin Woo deliver a powerful blow, knocking Kargalgan to the ground. Jin explains to the orc that once a magician loses his guards, they have no chance of winning, as his own guards turned shadows stab him in the back, slaying the boss. With the boss defeated and the remaining High Orcs being taken care of, Jin thinks about collecting drops. However, since this dungeon is the guild's property, he doesn't want to be too greedy. To the amazement of the attack force and the others in the room, he utters the word "Arise" and extracts the shadow of the dungeon boss. Jin couldn't put his finger on the orc's name, so off the top of his head, he names him Tusk, and this is when we learn that Tusk is an elite knight rank, adding one more rank to Jin Woo's army. As Jin finishes up, he realizes Hunter Cha and the Hunters Association are watching, as he wonders how he's going to get out of this situation. At this moment, the association's monitoring division steps in front of Jin, telling everyone else that what they just saw is top secret and can't be revealed to the public. Ki-hoon and the attack force thank Jin Woo for saving their lives, and this is when Jin gives the female healer her will back, saying she can deliver it herself. As they leave, one of the mages asks Hunter Cha why she's carrying a pickaxe, and she blushes, questioning if she looked weird. As the mage responds, "To who?" Jin Woo arrives to the Hunter Association for his rank evaluation, and is surprised by the crowd of reporters. However, they are gathered for TV star Lee Min-sung's evaluation. Jin tries to enter the building, but he gets yelled at by Min-sung's bodyguard, telling him he can't enter right now. However, Go Gun Hee he appears questioning on whose authority they are sending him away, as he personally walks Jin into the building. Min-sung gets angry at having his spotlight stolen, and as he thinks about how he's going to fix the mood with the reporters, Woo Jin-chul and others appear guarding the entrance as he tells the movie star that no one can enter until 11. Min-sung pleads to be let in as his evaluation is at 11 and the reporters are already there. When Min-sung doesn't get his way, he tries to strong-arm Woo Jin-chul, saying his father owns the Hunters Association's biggest sponsor, as he asks if Jin-chul can handle the consequences of ignoring him in front of all of the cameras. Jin-chul says, "Yes, I can," and the movie star is shocked as he asks if the hunter they let in is that amazing. In this moment, Jin-chul pulls off his glasses, asking if the actor could handle the consequences of knowing. Meanwhile, in the exam room, the evaluator requests to see Jin's abilities so they can assign his class, so Jin summons one of his soldiers. This is when Go Gun-hee asks if that's the full capacity of his ability, and Jin thinks that since there were a lot of witnesses anyway, there's no point in lying. So he summons his entire shadow army, stunning everyone in the room, as Baek Yoonho says he's nothing compared to when they first met. And with this, Jin Woo gets his license officially recognizing him as an S-rank hunter. On a creepy night in solo leveling, Jin watches his sister sleep, concerned someone might approach her while he's away, so he summons Tusk's guards. This is when he notices there are only 3 of them, as he asks where the 4th one is, and one of the orcs points upwards as Jin remembers he pinned one to the roof back in chapter 72. Jin sends the other 2 back and attaches the high orc along with 2 other guards to his sister to keep her safe. He thinks he might as well keep the whole neighborhood safe while he's at it, so he calls out the neighborhood watchmen and sends them to patrol the night. With his sister and the neighborhood safe, Jin enters the Demon Gate. Jin Woo puts on some new gear, and in this moment he receives a quest to defeat the Demon King. And the rewards are even better than last time, as he gets 30 bonus stats, a hidden reward and a rune that after broken will grant a job-specific skill. Jin continues his climb on floor 76 and gives the Orb of Avarice to Tusk, who turns himself giant and easily blows away the highest grade demons. At this point, we learn that Jin Woo has saved 127 shadows in his army, and he decides to manage them a little more efficiently, so he splits them into 6 teams total with only 2 orders. Eliminate any demons they run into and notify him once they find the entry permit. Jin Woo disperses his shadows. It's been 2 days since Jin Woo reached floor 80, and he realizes that since he still hasn't found the entry permit, there must be a strong enemy somewhere in the dungeon. Suddenly, Jin rapidly loses mana as someone or something continuously destroys his shadow soldiers, so he has no choice but to recall his shadows. The next day, due to a continuous ambush, he had to call his soldiers back again. Jin figures out that the enemies are intelligent, since they are purposely targeting the enemies they know they can win against, and predicts they'll be targeting Tank's group next.